Welcome to Desperately Seeking the 80s. I am Meg.
And I'm Jessica. And Meg and I have been friends since 1982. We got through middle school and high school together here in New York City, where we still live.
And where we podcast about New York City in the 80s. I do Ripped from the Headlines.
And I do pop culture. So, Meg, Speaking of pop culture, I was recently asked if I would go to a restaurant, and I didn't recognize the name. And then when I saw what it was, I was like, oh my God. Now, I know this isn't 80s, but it's very 90s, and I have not been back since then. But you used to live right around the corner. Do you remember the 6th Street Indian restaurants where everything was all lit?
Panatu?
Yes, we're going to Panatu.
Oh my God, it's the best anyway, and it's the only one that's still open.
It is the only one that's still open. I agreed to go. My memories of it were not stellar. That it was sort of like,
we used to order in from Panatu like once a week at least.
All right, so what should I eat that is?
They have meat samosas.
Meat samosas? How rare.
Actually, in my neighborhood, my current neighborhood, it is rare because we're at Curry Hill and most of those restaurants
are vegetarian. Right? No, that I meant that sincerely. Very rare. All right. Well, that gives me a glimmer of
I once
hope.
had a vindaloo there that was so spicy. I actually had to send it back, which I've never done in my life. But I was like, I can't eat it. I'll die. And they were nice about it. They were fine. I think I had a look about me and they were wrong. They
didn't realize that your taste buds were far more refined, that you were not ready to have your head blow off.
It was, but that, look, I just said two things, but in fact, Panatu, the best Indian food in the city.
Oh my God. I'm so glad I brought it up because I was dreading it and now I'm feeling a little excited.
It's so fun. Come on.
Well, you know what it is? Okay, so God forbid we start a podcast without me being grouchy about something stupid. So it's become very Instagrammer friendly. It's become a destination because of the lights. So it's going to be filled with people who are like, what is this thing where they do the V with their fingers in front of their face and stick their tongue out and take the photo?
Uh-huh.
You know, what is there a name for that other than?
I know of what you speak.
All right. So that thing, there's a lot of that. So
I think people will be more subtle about it and it won't interfere with your enjoyment of your evening.
Because frequently you are the arbiter of my good or bad behavior. Will you give me license to throw a meat samosa at someone if they Instagram in front of me?
Sure.
Yay. That's all I needed. Thank you.
I'd love to see a picture of you there though.
All right. Okay. Well, I'm going to take a photo. I'm going to take a photo. Put it up.
So when this podcast drops, it will be days before Halloween.
Ooh.
So my engagement question for you, Jessica, is what was your favorite Halloween costume when you were a kid?
I never had one.
What are you talking about? Of course you dressed up for Halloween.
I dressed up for Halloween every year. And we've had this conversation before, I think, where all of my costumes were way too ambitious. And so they fell short in their construction and engineering. And so I was in a fit every Halloween.
Oh, no.
I was in a fit of pique every Halloween. No, that's not true. There's one that I loved.
I'm glad.
And I'm convinced that I've spoken about it on this podcast, but maybe I haven't. So John and Maggie and Nina Rosen and I and our friends. Right. So that is the only one. That is the only one. The whole Jewish wedding with the chuppah is the Mazel Tov. That is by far my favorite. But all of them were engineering disasters, which to the unsuspecting public just looked like yet another kid, with like.
Do you know what you're doing this year?
There's a little piece of me that just wants to dress as myself and then just be like, I'm Fran Lebowitz. Oh, who Nick just saw he sat next to her getting shoes shined.
You could so easily do that.
I know.
Just like do that outfit.
I know. And part my hair in the middle. Yeah. So I just saw problem solved.
Just so easy. So easy.
Done. I'm glad that we had this moment because otherwise I would have been
solving problems.
We are making
real time.
This is how it happens, people.
My sources are the New York Times, Pix11,
Pix,
and Reddit.
Oh, it's gonna be good. Oh my God.
And it's not exactly Halloween themed, but you'll see why I decided that this was something good to talk about on Halloween.
I'm very excited.
All right. Well, it's a little dark.
Is it? Oh, really? Oh, Meg, have you decided to do something creepy and terrifying? Yay!
Especially for Halloween. Well, and actually do listen to all the details because it's a mystery.
What, like I normally just sit here and knit? Like, what do you think I'm doing?
I'm gonna have very pointed questions.
Oh, there's a quiz.
Okay.
Okay.
Not a quiz.
I am listening intently.
I need your help.
Okay, I'm leaning in.
All right. Late on Friday, Halloween night, 1986, 15-year-old Chaim Weiss was huddled in the third-floor hallway of his yeshiva reading. Chaim lived on Staten Island with his mom, Pessy, and dad, Anton, and two younger siblings, Menachem and Rachel. His grandparents were Holocaust refugees. His father was born in a displaced persons camp after World War II, and his family were ultra-Orthodox Jews. Litvish or Yeshivish, which is somewhere between Hasidic and modern Orthodox. Plainly put, religious ritual, prayer, and Torah study are very important to them, but as a community, they are not as insular as Hasidic groups. Does that make sense?
That was so well explained. Yes.
Good. Yeah, because, so you get the idea.
I mean, you just explained it.
Great.
Perfectly.
Okay. Awesome.
Because I wouldn't have known. So the fact that I understand it doesn't mean I have no prior knowledge. So well done.
Masitva Torah, which is the name of the school of Long Beach, Long Island, is an all-male boarding school at which the boys study the Torah and Talmud as well as general studies. Pessy, mom, was very relieved that her son chose to go to a yeshiva closer to their home over the ones in Cleveland, Philadelphia, or Baltimore. Some of his friends from like middle school and stuff, they were going far away, but he sort of stayed close to home, which was a good thing. Not that it helped. Anyway.
Oh, Jesus, Meg. Okay.
There were 40 boys who lived in dorm rooms at the yeshiva. All were housed 2 to a room, except for 2 boys who had single rooms, Chaim and another boy. They all wore traditional uniform, the white button-down shirts and black pants, often with a black suit jacket and a fedora. Chaim was popular, smart, loved basketball and chess. He had a wicked sense of humor and was a diligent student. The reason he was studying in the hallway late Friday night was because Sabbath had already begun Friday afternoon, and according to religious law, he was prohibited from turning his lights on or off in his room. But any light turned on before the Sabbath could stay on, so the boys often took advantage of the hallway light. Now it was Halloween night. Sometimes the boys were harassed by locals because of the way they dressed. And the school anticipated an uptick of that kind of behavior on Halloween. So an additional security guard had been hired to guard the kids as they walked between buildings. But now everyone was tucked in for the night. So that security guard had gone home. Needless to say, the boys did not partake in any Halloween festivities. The next morning.
Oh, no.
Saturday at 7:30 a.m., Chaim did not show up for morning prayer. The dorm counselor went to rouse him. When he opened the door, he saw Chaim's body on the floor, covered in blood, and the window was wide open on a cold fall morning. Now remember, it was the Sabbath, and there are many things prohibited on the Sabbath, namely carrying, burning, extinguishing, finishing, writing, erasing, cooking, washing, sewing, tearing, knotting, untying, shaping, plowing, planting, reaping, harvesting, threshing, winnowing, selecting, sifting, grinding, kneading, combing, spinning, dyeing, chain stitching, warping, weaving, unraveling, building, demolishing, trapping, shearing, slaughtering, skinning, tanning, smoothing, and marking. Accordingly, the yeshiva, while they did contact the local police, they did not call Chaim's parents until after the Sabbath, an hour after sunset on that Saturday. There was no way to get in touch, no phones.
Oh my God, yes.
And no one's calling, no one's picking up. And the faculty and students did not participate in the investigation until after the Sabbath. So
that's fucking mental.
Well,
I'm just saying there are always extenuating circumstances, like a slaughtered child.
Right. When the police arrived at the crime scene, they determined that Chaim had been in his bed when he was bludgeoned to death with a hatchet in the face, sometime between 1 a.m. and 7:30 a.m. When you see a picture of this child, this 15-year-old boy, he's just the sweetest little thing. What on earth? What could possibly have caused this? There were no signs of a struggle or of sexual assault. I don't know what signs of sexual assault they were looking for, but they didn't see any. And his body had been moved from the bed to the floor after he'd been killed. The police did not find the teachers, students, and staff particularly forthcoming, even after the Sabbath. There were a few elements that didn't work in the favor of free and easy communication. The Jewish law against gossip, for example, kept them from suggesting a suspected perpetrator, as they would not be 100% sure. The boys were all minors, and many parents would not let them be interviewed alone. Completely
normal,
fair.
Okay.
And the police may not have been equipped with the appropriate bedside manner to extract the info they needed. I should also have told you I watched an episode of Unsolved Mysteries, and they interviewed one of the policemen, one of the Irish policemen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Not the guy.
Not the guy to bring in for this case. Polygraphs did not yield anything helpful. The front door of the dorm had a combination lock, but a number of people knew the combination. There was no sign of forced entry, and none of the dorm rooms had individual locks. Chaim's window was open. You know what I mean?
No, I know. I'm surprised by that.
Oh.
That none of the kid boys could lock their doors.
No.
That's fucked up.
Chaim's window was open, but there wasn't a fire escape on that side of the building. So that's not how the murderer entered or exited the room. Now, there was a fire escape on the other side of the building.
Okay. So someone from the outside could still have gotten in, walked through the dorm, and walked into his room because there's no lock on the door.
Right. Now, remember, it's 2 boys to a room, except for Chaim and one other boy.
Right.
Chaim had been suffering from a cold, so it seemed unlikely that he would have opened his own window. In fact, the police eventually suspected the murderer was familiar with Jewish law because it is customary to move a dead body to the lowest part of the room
and to open the window for the soul. Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But that's in contradiction to other Jewish customs that instruct...
Like, don't kill anyone?
Really? That is one of the main ones. It's one of the 10 top ones. Good point. And also that the body shouldn't be moved and should be covered with a sheet. So who knows? There was a lit candle in the room, but it is unclear if that candle was placed there before or after the body was discovered. There was some chatter about a drifter, and...
There's always a drifter. Give me a break.
And a mentally ill man.
Oh.
And a former janitor.
Wait, this is like straight out of Central Casting. This is like
so
every get the Mystery Machine.
Oh, and of course, anti-Semitic harassment. But all of those particular suspects were cleared, and it seemed unlikely that the harassment would escalate from egging a building to face bludgeoning.
Wait, I have a question. When you said that they've all been cleared, did they find a drifter to ask? Like, we're just going to go under the bridge, see if anyone's hanging out there. Did you do it? No? Thanks. All right. Back to the mystery machine. I'm sorry.
Oh,
poor Chaim.
Boy.
Okay.
All evidence pointed to an inside job. And it really did. I mean, and that Chaim was targeted because an outsider wouldn't have known which room was a single and which one was Chaim's. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Too much lines up.
Right. So that leads us to student or teacher. FBI profilers said it looked like the rash act of a young person, but Anton Weiss, Chaim's father, told, and he, by the way, he is very active. He is on the police. You better figure this out. He was pointing his fingers all over the place. He was in front of cameras.
A good dad.
Oh, absolutely. Was not going to let Jewish law stand in the way of him finding out who killed his son.
Well, common sense. Thank God.
So, Anton Weiss, Chaim's father, told authorities that the summer before, Chaim had called home from sleepaway camp crying, but refused to say why. He wanted to come home. He didn't tell his dad why he wanted to come home. And the dad didn't ask follow-ups. Later that summer, Rabbi Avram Cooper, a school administrator, asked to meet with Chaim. Anton and Pessy drove, this is in the middle of the summer, drove Chaim to the rabbi's home in Brooklyn, and the two of them spoke privately for 10 minutes. And Anton remembered Chaim was very upset after this meeting, but again, wouldn't say why.
And he didn't break down the door and say to the rabbi, "Tell me what you said to my son, you fuckface"?
No. I know. I think there's a lot of regret. After the murder, news crews cornered Rabbi Cooper, and I saw this on Pix 11. Oh.
Creepy.
Yeah. And he claimed he had no answers. I had nothing to say. I don't know. I didn't get a good vibe
I think he had
from
a
him.
lot to say. He wouldn't.
Oh, how about this? So Anton ended up suing the school. And Rabbi Cooper, when he heard about that, approached Anton and asked him if he or his family had ever done anything to cause the misfortune that had befallen Chaim. What an asshole. At the very least.
What is brought to mind is that moment with Madeline Kahn in Clue. Flames burning on the sides of my face. Burning.
Not a good guy, Rabbi Cooper.
I would say a shitbird.
And maybe something more than that.
Killer bird.
The case went cold. The authorities have one stray hair they could test for DNA, but they are scared they will destroy it in the testing process. So they're waiting for a viable suspect before they test. Because if they test it and they just have this like DNA and it doesn't match with anybody.
They can't hold on to the results.
I know. I thought that too.
I mean, give me a break.
I'm just saying. I didn't say it. They said it.
That was some really.
They still have it.
They still have the hair.
They have the hair.
And they've not tested it because what if someone's in? Now I know that cop shows are not frequently even remotely connected to reality. Like there's a database with every human being on the planet.
But now actually, because of DNA heredity things, like there's a lot out there.
Yeah. So test the hair. Test the hair. Test the hair.
Anton and Pessy have never given up hope. They pressed authorities and the case was reopened in 2013. And there was that story that I just told you about on Pix 11 when they cornered Cooper. It was I mean, basically all the rabbis who they interviewed in this story are like,
shady.
They are not interested in talking to the press.
I can't imagine they would be.
Not what they want to do with their time. So that story on Pix 11 was in 2017, but no new leads have surfaced. The authorities associated with the yeshiva have no interest in discussing the case.
Well, duh.
And of course, it's been pointed out on Reddit repeatedly.
Yay, time for Reddit.
That socially isolated teenagers in tight-knit religious communities are ripe for victimization.
Well, I already have a theory about what happened.
I'm so excited.
Based on, and what you just said.
Okay, tell me what
No. Keep going. Keep going.
I was just going to say, unless somebody who knows something speaks up, the case will remain cold. According to Detective John Nolan.
Unhelpful John Nolan.
Helpful Irish
Bad
John Nolan.
Bedside manner John Nolan.
Of the Nassau County Police, quote, "It's one of the toughest cases we've had because we were never able to determine a motive. And without a motive, it's very tough to have direction."
Here's what I think.
Yes.
Let's begin.
I knew you would have. You were like an extension of Reddit.
I love Reddit so much because have I ever shared the story of the poop knife with you?
Yes.
It's my favorite story.
And with our listeners.
Okay, look, you know I don't have a good memory, but poop knife was how I learned about Reddit. And so I will always love Reddit deeply. All right. Here's what I think. I think, first off, that religious communities of all kinds will always close ranks. When you have a religious community that is very mysterious to whatever the police department is, this is not like they don't know these people. They don't know how they function. And they were stonewalled so completely, and they did not bring in someone who was like, here's how to actually crack this community and make them talk. Here's what's going to motivate them to speak very specifically. Like, let's find the dirt. I think that they were like bunch of crazy Jews. This is a horrible thing, but they're not going to help themselves. And so fuck them. That's what I think. Number one.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
Right. Because it's like, it's just too hard. So this idea of like, I didn't test the hair, like, obviously I know nothing. I only know the storytelling we don't know what their evidence is or isn't. But to say like, no one fessed up, so we don't know who did it. Like, are you shitting me right now? Give me a break. So there's a lot of that. And there are, in my faulty memory, there are a couple of different, very isolated, hyper religious, Orthodox, whatever, Jewish sects that are famously aggressive about don't fuck with us, like go away. So who knows what was going on with this, and that the dad, Anton, must have been an outlier in his perspective. So here's what I think from what you've said.
Yes.
First, I have a question.
Okay.
When you said that there was no sign of sexual abuse.
Right.
Who brought that up? Was that a police thing? Was it just like the coroner was like...
That was the police.
Okay. Bad things happen at summer camp.
Yeah.
And I think that... And so was Rabbi Cooper at camp?
No.
Okay. I think that something happened at camp of a sexual nature. And I think that Rabbi Cooper in some way was aware of what was going on. It's his oversight on this thing. And he spoke to the boy in some way to say, it's time for you to shut the fuck up. And you're never going to say anything. And so so he's upset at camp. He comes back. He's told to dummy up by the rabbi. So now he's upset again.
Mm-hmm.
And he's isolated because his parents, like, part of the culture is don't question the religious leader, right? So his parents haven't been like, excuse me, my child is crying. What is wrong with you?
Right.
So now, also, who put him in the single?
That's what nobody can find out.
Who assigned him the single? I think he was put in the single with some awareness. Who knows how calculated it was at the time, but that this kid can't talk about what happened to him to another kid, like during lights out. Like, let's keep him isolated.
And also accessible.
Well, and that's the second part. And then if, who knows what he said? Did something bubble up? Did he go back to Rabbi Cooper and say, I'm going to jump out the window. Like, I'm going to tell my parents, I'm going to I'm whatever, but something for Cooper to have blood on his hands. I think that either whoever did something not right at summer camp or Cooper as the cleanup crew, they are the architects of this kid. It's like it's not a long con, but it's a long tail murder.
I think you're right. And I think because the FBI said they thought it was a young person had done it in a rash moment, but actually all the evidence seemed to point towards him being bludgeoned while he was still asleep. And that's not a rash moment.
No.
That's, I'm sneaking in to kill you. I just happen to be aiming for your head.
These are also kids who spend all their time studying. Which one of them is really going to swing an axe over his head? Have you seen their spaghetti arms? These kids can't lift a pencil.
You should have been on the police force in Nassau County.
Yeah, like, everyone show us your biceps. No one here's picking up an axe and bludgeoning someone with it.
Oh, how about this? They didn't find the murder weapon.
Because Rabbi Cooper drove it the fuck away. That's why. Yeah, it's all on Cooper. Is he still alive?
Yes.
Let's go get him.
He was interviewed on this Pix 11. He's in New Jersey. He retired. And he's in New Jersey.
I think it's a new field trip for us.
Oh, God.
Fortunately, neither one of us can drive.
I'm going to force you to watch the YouTube before you again say, let's go talk to that guy. He is creepy.
Well, we'll just come with an axe. We'll come with a murder weapon. Don't fuck with us, Rabbi Cooper. We're going to show you what... We're going to put you in a single room by yourself and come in with a fucking axe, you shitbird. I know you did it. That's it. I'm done. Case closed.
Oh my God, one of these days we're going to get in trouble.
You know what's going to happen.
What?
But you know how my doormen really don't understand the concept of, like, first you call, you get the, okay, send them up, and then you send them up. I get a lot of, he's on his way up. And I'm like, great. So thank you for just letting me know, giving me like a 5-second running start ahead of the murderer. Thank you. So I know that Prashant is going to be like, Rabbi Cooper's on his way up. I'm going to be like trying to figure out how to jump out the 16th floor window and be like, I have like a parachute ready to go just in case Rabbi Cooper comes. All right. Well, we're going to go from the truly grim and scary to the absolutely absurd.
Great. Palate cleanser.
Okay. So I was running through our oeuvre and found
our
oeuvre.
Yes.
And I was listening to how hard I laughed and amused myself with the moose murders.
Oh,
remember that one?
That was very funny.
That was hilarious. So lo and behold, I started looking up a topic that will soon become evident. But in doing so, I found a review to rival the moose murders.
Okay.
And it's a great segue into my topic. March 16th, 1981. Mel Gusso writes about Broadway Follies opens at the Nederlander. How New York was that? Nederlander. I opens at the Nederlander. Okay, ready? P.T. Barnum would have blushed at the flim-flammery of Broadway Follies, a small, brash vaudeville show that opened last night at the Nederlander Theater. The title tune labels the evening an extravaganzical. which elasticizes the English language and leaves the show open to charges from a Bureau of Standards and Practices. The producers have searched the globe for top-flight variety talent and have come up with, as headliners, the Ken and Barbie dolls of pantomimists and a supporting cast that features 6 boxer dogs chasing balloons and wrestling with a roly-poly woman. This is not a show with a theme or a concept, but an unconnected series of 7 vaudeville acts. One stellar attraction, another that can be greeted with nostalgic affection, and 5 that with extreme politeness one might call limited. In the high-powered top dollar ticket spotlight of Broadway, 1 1/2 out of 7 won't wash, which is regrettable since there is one person here who deserves to be seen. And he's a comic juggler. So there's a whole thing about him and juggling bowling balls and blah, blah, blah. And he says, nothing could top this guy, certainly not the show's putative stars, Robert Shields and Laureen Yarnell.
Oh,
who are the
Shields and Yarnell?
Yes, yes. So,
why do we know them?
I'm going to tell you in a minute. Say nothing, say nothing.
Okay.
Say nothing. And they are the Ken and Barbie pantomimists referred to. Shields and Yarnell, to give the team its aggregate name, are street performers turned television celebrities. They begin by effectively simulating the stiff-jointed, expressionless movement of toy soldiers. This is, as it turns out, their major talent. Later, Mr. Shields does a solo pantomime as a frog prince that will not give Marcel Marceau or Kermit cause for insomnia. Tessie O'Shea sings a few of her so-called silly songs, makes faces at the audience, and leads willing theatergoers in crumpling paper bags and, quote, playing them as if they were banjos.
So they were just trying to
This
move
is one of
variety.
many non-musical sounds in the number. Miss O'Shea does her final number in a chicken suit that could clothe an ostrich. Backed by a chorus of dancers dressed in feathered shells, she sits on a nest and pretends to lay an egg. No comment. So this thing opened March 16th and closed March 16th.
Wow.
So that was it.
God.
For Shields and Yarnell and this production in quotes. So the reason that I got to this is because there's one thing that makes me laugh. Well, there are many things that make me laugh. I'm an easy laugh. We all know that. Fine. But I don't know how it came across the transom, but I was looking at some clips of Spinal Tap and I ran across the clip where Billy Crystal, as Morty the Mime, is yelling at Dana Carvey, who is the mime who plays the cater waiter who can't move enough meatballs.
Okay.
And he yells at him, "Mime is money." And I was like, I wonder why everyone hates mime.
Ooh, good question.
And I was like, that's what I want to know, because in the 70s, mime was everywhere. You couldn't swing a cat in New York City without running into mime. It was ubiquitous. And then suddenly in the 80s, it became a joke. It was mime is money.
Do you remember that scene in Tootsie when Dustin Hoffman is miserable and he goes over and pushes the mime?
Yes, exactly. 80s. So I was like, I want to look into mime and figure, words I never thought I would say and figure out what the hell is going on here. And I came up with some interesting ideas. And one of them is going to be close to your heart because, well, you'll see.
Okay.
So here's what I found out. First off, just as a quick aside, the first time in pop culture history of this caliber that mime was rejected was in 1969 when David Bowie tried to foist it on his audiences prior to Space Oddity. He was laughed off the stage. He had like a flower and a white face makeup because he was trained in mime. What? And before he got his whole Ziggy Stardust thing going on,
tested out mime?
He did a lot. Well, mime was included in all. Like if you watch Ziggy Stardust now, knowing this, you're going to be like, my God, he's doing mime on us. So that was that. But in 1972, what broke on the scene? You guessed it, Shields and Yarnell. And they took everyone by storm. They were indeed street performers. They wound up on a talk show. I can't remember which.
They had some kind of variety
and then
show.
They had, yes, and they were on multiple TV shows. They had all kinds of
so they were frequent guests?
They were both frequent guests, and they had their own specials.
Okay.
And their thing was, in 1974, supposedly, Shields invented the robot.
Oh, my God.
I know. Now, simultaneously, in 1973, what else broke on the scene in New York City? Mummenschanz.
I was going to say it, and then I didn't want to say the wrong thing and catch you off and whatever. I was totally going to say Mummenschanz.
Mummenschanz. And I remember,
obsessed.
Yes, and I remember as a child being like, "Oh my God,
it's
the toilet paper thing, and the Post-its,
do you realize
and the eyes."
Probably, I'm going to say 90% of the people we're talking to right now have no idea what we're talking about.
Well, we're going to have to put it on the Instagram, because Mummenschanz, quickly, Swiss mime troupe. What?
That children were obsessed with.
We were carted to so many, but they were a big deal. They were touring.
They were the 92nd Street Y all the time.
They were touring the United States. They had different touring companies. They were touring the United States. They were touring Europe.
Clay heads and
they were all in black with black like hoods and painted black faces, and they would, or masks, whatever, but they would put stuff on top, like paper mache or clay, or like they did the Post-its, so they they would remove as eyes
Post-its,
and they would remove the Post-its, and it would make it look like they were looking in one direction or another.
Brilliant.
It was so smart.
Bring back Mummenschanz.
They're still around.
Oh.
But not here.
Oh.
But no, they're not for us anymore. They're in Switzerland.
I think I could get back into it.
Well, let that be a challenge to you. I will not be joining you on that particular journey. But in 1974, another interesting thing happened with mime in New York City. A photographer, a young photographer who did not have enough money for a studio of his own, took to the streets of New York City to memorialize what was going on. And he ran across two mimes in Central Park, took tons of photos of them, and later found out that one of them was
Robin Williams.
Yes, it was Robin Williams and his friend something Oppenheim. Running around Central Park. And that guy, and Oppenheim, the guy who didn't make it. So that, just for fun, we're creating a timeline. Okay. Now, in 1981, the Shields and Yarnell show closes with I think a sigh of relief from the critics in New York. In 1984, we have Spinal Tap's Mime is Money. So we're seeing that mime is now going down.
Now it's a joke.
Hill. Right. Now in 1980, I'm sorry, in 1974, 1975, mime adjacent magician Doug Henning had his show.
He's so 70s.
The Magic Show on Broadway. It was a smash hit. It included a lot of mime. It was produced by, are you ready for it? Ivan Reitman of Ghostbusters, Meatballs, Stripes, and Kindergarten Cop fame. And the music was done by Stephen Schwartz of Pippin, Godspell, and Wicked fame. Who knew? So Doug Henning's Magic Show. Now, this is what occurred to me. I was like, this is because of Doug Henning. Now, for those of you who don't know who he he's dead. He is a was. He was a magician who was very hippie-ish. He had really long curly hair with bangs and a satin bodysuit with a rainbow on it and a mustache. And his assistant was his lovely wife, Robin, which is how he said it. My lovely wife, Robin. And I wrote this down and I realized I had found the answer to why people hated mime in the 80s. I wrote down the words hippie hangover. And I was like, oh my God. Because that's what it was. It was so touchy-feely, and it was so earnest.
Yeah.
It was so sincere. And there was a a troupe in 1987 that actually got really good reviews in New York. We can put it on the Insta. I don't remember what their name is. But the person who was interviewed by the Times about it gave this hyper intellectual explanation of the art. And I was like, I'm snoring. And this was done in 1987. And I'm annoyed retroactively. Like, what a pompous pile of crap that is.
I think you are right about the earnestness becoming passé.
I mean, it's the go-go 80s, right? It's like, just do something and do it possibly at a higher volume. We'd like to know what you're thinking. Well, Howard Jones added volume to the situation in 1985 when he went on tour. For those of you who need a moment to remember Howard Jones, he's the one who told us no one is to blame. Look it up. But Howard Jones went on tour with the inexplicable decision to put Jed the Mime on tour with him.
Jed the Mime?
Jed, you know what? I found the videos. Jed the Mime was a skinny bald guy who mimed along poorly to Howard Jones's lyrics.
Oh,
like, this is a song for all of my friends. And he's like, friends, dancing around next to him.
To look this up.
It's so horrific. But all of the people who I found commenting about this online, like, they're all Howard Jones fans. So they're kind of like, it was the 80s and it was new wave. Don't ask. It's fine. It's fine. Just pretend it didn't happen. It was funny. Okay. Yeah. But it's creepy as fuck. So Howard Jones did that in 1985. And okay, well, we think it's over, but no, from 1984 to 1985, back in New York at the Lunt Fontanne Theater, Doug Henning is back with World of Magic and more mime.
And what year is that?
84 to 85. He had that. Now, and he's a huge success, but it's like all of it is happening in spite of the mime. Okay. So this is all happening. And then in 1987, if you can get a load of this, there is a new mime troupe that begins. And this mime troupe takes New York by storm on the Lower East Side, doing don't say a word, doing pop-ups. And they are, even though it's a bit premature, in 1987, their shows are about the end of the 80s and looking forward. And they're convincing people that they're not mime. They're performance art. They're forward thinking. Wrong, wrong, wrong. The Blue Man Group brings mime to New York again. They are so popular that they wind up getting installed at the Astor Place Theater in 1991 and continue to inflict mime on New Yorkers and the entire world.
And lots of drumming.
To this day. Yes. I remember.
I know a Blue Man.
I'm sure you do. I was stunned by this. They started the Blue Man School.
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
It was preschool. And then I think it started.
No, it was more
lower school too.
They did
after the preschool.
It was like it was as
popular when I was applying my kids to preschool, and it was absolutely considered an option.
Well, it turned out
because preschools are hard to find in this city, to be honest.
So I have a friend who's sent her son there.
Okay,
and it was as bogus can be.
No.
And what it made me think of at the time was, you know, in Auntie Mame, how Patrick Dennis is telling like the guy who's in charge of the trust, like, I went to school and I was naked and I was a fish. And he's like, out, wrap it up. That's not going to continue. That's what they had, like no curriculum. It was a total shit show.
That's a bummer.
Indeed. The child was totally delayed as a result of his involvement in the Blue School. But anyway, so that is the story of mime. But then, and here's where this all comes back to you, Meg, because I was thinking, why do we hate mimes? Okay, so we know that it's pompous. We know that it's earnest And we live in a cynical society, so that's not going to help. But then the other thing I thought about the 80s, I was like, what is mime close to? Clowns.
You hate clowns.
Well, you know what happened in 1980 to kick off the 80s? Yes, Alfie is upset.
John Wayne Gacy.
That is correct. Ding, 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 ding. John Wayne Gacy. So the
ruined clowns for all
ruined
time.
Clowns. And I think he, by association, started to really plant the seeds of discontent with all things clown related. So that is Mime, New York, Shields and Yarnell, Broadway, Mummenschanz, and please, dear God, let it stop.
So my cousin Jan studied with Jacques Lecoq in Paris as a mime. He is, and I'll tell you, it is kind of incredible what he can do. He can walk on stilts too.
I do believe that Jacques Lecoq is also the person who Bowie studied with. So Jan and
Very
Bowie.
fancy.
There you go. See, not even 6 degrees of separation, Maggie.
Ooh.
You are 1 degree of separation from
David Bowie.
Rest in peace. So there was one thing I realized I left out about why people in America, or generally, but let's say America, were predisposed to mime. And that was, I can't believe I got through the whole thing without talking about Marcel Marceau. So Marcel Marceau, huge star, somewhere between clown and mime. His big character was called Bip the Clown. Very famous, beloved. And one of the amazing things that he did in his life was during World War II, he used mime to entertain Jewish children as they were being led to safety in Switzerland. He kept them quiet by being Bip the Clown. Oh my God. And so that legacy of doing that, and just because he was an all-around awesome guy, really made mime, it was good promo.
Right.
Let's put
Maybe
it that way.
That's our tie-in.
The clown. No, because that's both. That's me and me.
But Holocaust and because
Chaim, the Jews. Well, we have two tie-ins. We have Bip the Clown, Holocaust, Chaim's grandparents, but we also have, and this, you said this during the break, and it made me just love you that much more, that it was the tie-in of the silence of the yeshiva and the silence of the mimes. Can you hear them, Clarice? The silence of the mimes.